Hello, and welcome to Nexus Story Network.
Admiral Zephyr stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crushing Dawn, and watched the stars shift as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Behind him, 999 other ships materialized in perfect formation. Each vessel gleamed with the dark metal of the Calrothian Empire, their hulls covered in the ceremonial markings that told of conquered worlds and defeated enemies. The Admiral's four eyes focused on the yellow star ahead. Sol, the locals called it, a simple star with a few rocky planets and some gas giants. Nothing special about it except for the third planet from the Sun. That blue-green world held nearly 8 billion primitive creatures who called themselves humans. Navigation Officer Kelrich, confirm our position, Zephyr commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had personally overseen the conquest of 47 star systems. Position confirmed, Admiral. We are at the outer edge of the Sol system, approximately 4.7 billion kilometers from the target world, Kelrich replied, his tentacles dancing across the control surfaces with practiced ease. Zephyr nodded and turned to his intelligence officer. Tactical Officer Hess, review the intelligence reports on these humans one more time. Hess activated the holographic display in the center of the bridge. Images of human cities, their primitive spacecraft, and their basic weapon systems floated in the air between them. The humans achieved faster-than-light travel only 63 of their years ago. Their ships are crude, using chemical rockets for basic propulsion and simple fusion drives for their longer journeys. They have established small colonies on 2 planets in their system, but these are tiny outposts with no military value. The Admiral studied the images. Human spacecraft looked like metal tubes with engines attached. Compared to the elegant curves and advanced technology of Calrothian ships, they seemed almost childish. What about their weapons? Primitive kinetic weapons that fire metal projectiles and basic energy beams. Nothing that could penetrate our shields or armor. Our battle computers calculate their strongest weapons would need to fire continuously for 73 minutes just to damage one of our smallest escort ships. Around the bridge, other Calrothian officers chittered with amusement. 73 minutes of continuous fire just to scratch their paint. It was almost insulting that the Empire had sent a full 1,000-ship fleet to deal with such weaklings. Population centers? Zephyr asked. Mostly concentrated on the main continents of their home world. They have built large cities, but these are undefended. No orbital platforms, no shield generators, no particle cannons. The humans seem to believe that distance from other star systems was their protection. Zephyr's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a Calrothian smile. Distance had protected them for a while, but the Empire's expansion had finally reached their little corner of the galaxy. Soon, Earth would join the dozens of other worlds that served the Empire, and its population would learn to be grateful for Calrothian rule. Communications Officer Vex, open a channel to all ships in the fleet. Channel open. Admiral Zephyr straightened to his full height. At 8 feet tall with 4 arms and a carapace that had been scarred in dozens of battles, he was an impressive figure even among his own kind. Officers and crew of the Imperial Conquest Fleet. We stand at the edge of another victory for the Empire. The primitive world ahead of us will fall as easily as all the others. Their weapons cannot harm us. Their ships cannot outrun us. And their armies cannot stand against us. We will give them one chance to surrender as is traditional. When they refuse, as they always do, we will show them the power of the Empire. Cheers echoed through the communication system as crews throughout the fleet responded to their admiral's words. They had heard similar speeches before dozens of other worlds. The pattern was always the same. The locals would try to fight, fail completely, and then accept imperial rule. Some worlds surrendered immediately when they saw the size of the fleet. Others put up brief futile resistance before giving up. A few had to be completely conquered through orbital bombardment and ground invasion, but they all fell in the end. Begin the approach to the inner system, standard formation. I want those humans to see exactly how outmatched they are. The fleet began moving toward the inner planets. Their ships were not just instruments of war but also tools of intimidation. Each vessel was designed to look as threatening as possible with sharp angles and dark armor that seemed to swallow light. The biggest ships were over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and carrying thousands of troops. As they passed the outer planets, Calrothian sensors automatically cataloged everything they saw. Jupiter, the largest planet, had a few small human research stations orbiting it. Saturn had similar tiny outposts. All of them looked temporary and fragile. The humans had barely begun to explore their own solar system, let alone develop it into something useful. "Admiral, we're detecting some unusual readings from the asteroid belt," reported Science Officer Yen. "What kind of readings?" "Metal signatures. Lots of them. The humans appear to have been mining the asteroids extensively. There are also some structures that look like processing facilities." Zephyr wasn't surprised. Most species tried to extract resources from their star systems once they developed space travel. It was actually a sign of intelligence, even if their methods were primitive. "Any military installations?" "No, sir. Just mining equipment and what appeared to be automated collection drones. Nothing that poses any threat to the fleet." The Admiral dismissed the asteroid mining with a wave of one of his 4 hands. Typical behavior for a young species. They would strip mine their asteroid belt for metals, probably to build more of their crude spacecraft. It would all belong to the Empire soon enough anyway. "Time to intercept?" he asked. "At current speed, approximately 18 hours until we reach the 3rd planet's orbit, Admiral." "Excellent. Begin preparing the surrender demand. Use the standard format, but make sure they understand the consequences of refusing." Communications Officer Vex worked at his station for several minutes, crafting the message that would be sent to every human government and military installation in the system. It was the same message the Empire had sent to dozens of worlds, translated into the local language. "Message ready, Admiral." "Send it." The transmission burst out from the flagship's powerful communication array, carrying the ultimatum that had preceded the fall of so many worlds. The message was simple and direct. The humans had one full rotation of their planet to surrender unconditionally. If they refused, the Imperial fleet would demonstrate why resistance was futile. Now came the waiting. Some species responded within minutes, their leaders immediately recognizing the hopelessness of their situation. Others took hours to debate and argue before accepting reality. A few actually tried to negotiate as if they had anything to bargain with. Zephyr expected the humans to follow the usual pattern. There would be panic on their home world as their primitive governments tried to figure out what to do. Their military leaders would run calculations and realize their weapons were useless. Their scientists would study the approaching fleet and understand that their technology was centuries behind Imperial standards. "Admiral, we're receiving a response," Vex announced after only 47 minutes. That was faster than expected. Perhaps these humans were smarter than they looked. "Put it on the main display." The holographic projector activated, showing the image of a middle-aged human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. She had short gray hair and calm eyes that looked directly at the camera. When she spoke, her voice was steady and confident. "To the commanders of the approaching fleet, this is General Sarah Chen speaking on behalf of the United Earth Defense Council. We have received your ultimatum and appreciate the advance notice. We want you to know that we understand your capabilities and do not underestimate the power of your fleet. However, we must respectfully decline your offer of surrender. We have prepared for this possibility and we will defend our home and our people. We suggest you reconsider your approach to our system. Thank you for your time." The message ended, leaving the bridge of the crushing dawn in silence. Several officers looked at each other in confusion. The human had thanked them for their time. She had spoken as if she were politely declining an invitation to dinner, not rejecting the ultimatum of a vastly superior military force. "Did she just thank us?" asked Tactical Officer Hess. She said they were prepared, added Science Officer Yen. Prepared with what? Their mining equipment? Zephyr felt a flicker of something he had not experienced in many years. Not fear exactly, but uncertainty. In all his battles, facing enemies with everything from primitive clubs to advanced energy weapons, he had never encountered a response quite like this. The human general had not seemed afraid. She had not pleaded or threatened or tried to negotiate. She had simply said no, as if she had every confidence in her ability to make that choice stick. Analysis of their response, he asked his staff. Unknown, Admiral. This does not match any of the typical response patterns in our database. Most species show signs of panic, anger, or desperation when faced with overwhelming force. The humans showed none of these indicators. Perhaps they do not fully understand what they face, suggested Navigation Officer Kelrich. Their translation systems might not have conveyed the true meaning of our message. Or they might be planning something, added Hess. Some species have attempted surprise attacks when faced with invasion, though none have ever succeeded. Zephyr considered both possibilities. The humans might indeed not understand the situation, though their general had specifically said they understood the fleet's capabilities. Or they might be planning some desperate last stand with their primitive weapons. Either way, the result would be the same. Continue the approach. Double the sensor sweeps. I want to know about every human ship, every installation, every weapon in this system. If they want to fight, we will be ready. Yes, Admiral. The fleet continued its inexorable advance toward the inner planets. As they moved deeper into the solar system, their sensors painted an increasingly detailed picture of human civilization. The third planet was indeed heavily populated with large cities connected by transportation networks. The humans had built space elevators and orbital stations, though these were clearly civilian in nature. Their two colony worlds showed signs of growing populations and developing infrastructure, but there were no obvious military preparations. No massive weapons platforms, no hidden fleets, no energy shields protecting their cities. The humans appeared to be going about their daily business as if a 1,000-ship invasion fleet was not bearing down on them. This is very strange, Admiral, reported Yen as they passed the orbit of Mars. We are detecting normal civilian traffic around Earth. Cargo ships moving between their space stations, passenger shuttles traveling to their moon colony, even what appears to be a tourist vessel heading to their Mars outpost. Either they are incredibly brave or they truly do not understand their situation. Or they have something we cannot see, Zephyr replied quietly. In his long career, he had learned that the most dangerous enemies were often the ones who did not seem dangerous at all. As the fleet crossed into the inner system, automated probes began their detailed scans of every human installation. The space stations were civilian. The moon colony was a research facility. The Mars outpost was small and defenseless. Everything looked exactly as the intelligence reports had predicted. But General Chen's calm confidence kept nagging at the Admiral's mind. No species had ever remained so composed when faced with the Imperial fleet. There had to be something they were missing. 8 hours to Earth orbit, Admiral, announced Kelrich. Maintain course and speed. All ships to battle stations. If the humans have any surprises waiting for us, we will be ready. Throughout the fleet, Calrothian warriors prepared for what they expected to be the shortest battle in Imperial history. Weapon systems powered up, shields activated, and troops loaded into assault transports. The humans might have sounded confident, but confidence without capability was just ignorance. Admiral Zephyr settled into his command chair and watched Earth grow larger on his display screens. Soon he would add another world to the Empire's collection, and these strange humans would learn the price of defying Imperial will. He had no way of knowing that at that very moment, in facilities hidden throughout the Sol system, billions of humans were making their own final preparations. The mining operations his sensors had detected were not what they appeared to be. The space debris scattered throughout the system was not abandoned junk. And the calm confidence of General Chen was not ignorance at all. The admiral was about to discover that humans had a very different understanding of what it meant to be prepared for war. The ambush. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Calrothian fleet was still 3 hours from Earth orbit. Science Officer Yen suddenly straightened at his station, his tentacles moving rapidly across the sensor controls. "Admiral, I'm detecting movement in the asteroid belt." Zephyr turned from his study of Earth's defensive positions. "What kind of movement?" "Unknown, sir. Objects that our sensors previously classified as space debris are changing position. They appear to be adjusting their orbits." The Admiral frowned. Space debris did not adjust its own orbit. "Show me." The main holographic display shifted to show the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Thousands of objects floated in the vast ring of rock and ice, most no larger than a building. But as they watched, several dozen pieces of what had appeared to be dead metal began moving with obvious purpose. "Could they be automated collection drones?" asked Tactical Officer Hess. "Negative. The movement patterns are too coordinated. And Admiral, there are more of them. Many more." As if responding to Yan's words, hundreds of additional objects throughout the belt suddenly came to life. Old satellite shells that had been drifting for decades fired positioning thrusters. Discarded ship hulls that looked like abandoned wrecks began broadcasting identification signals. Even some of the smaller asteroids started moving in ways that natural rocks simply could not. "How many total objects?" Zephyr demanded. Yen worked frantically at his controls, trying to separate genuine asteroids from whatever the humans had hidden among them. "Approximately 43,000 artificial objects, Admiral. All of them were perfectly camouflaged until they activated." 43,000. The Admiral felt his confidence waver slightly. Even if they were just civilian mining equipment, that was far more than intelligence had predicted. "Analysis of their capabilities?" "Working on it, sir. Most appear to be converted civilian hardware, old satellites, decommissioned spacecraft, industrial equipment, but Admiral, they all seem to be moving toward intercept courses with our fleet." Before Zephyr could respond, his communications officer interrupted. "Admiral, incoming transmission from one of the objects in the belt." "Put it through." The holographic display showed another human. This one a young man in a simple gray uniform. He was standing in what looked like the control room of a mining station, but something about his posture suggested military training. "Calrothian Fleet. This is Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez of Asteroid Mining Platform 7. On behalf of the Seoul Defense Network, I want to thank you for providing such detailed sensor readings of your ships. We've been collecting data on your shield configurations, armor composition, and weapon systems for the past 6 hours. The information will be very useful for our defensive preparations." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge silent except for the hum of electronics. "They've been scanning us?" asked Hess in disbelief. Science Officer Yen checked his instruments. "Confirmed, Admiral. Very subtle sensor sweeps disguised as routine mining equipment scans. I didn't recognize them because the patterns were completely unfamiliar." Admiral Zephyr's mandibles clicked together in anger. The humans had been studying his fleet while he had dismissed their presence as unimportant. It was a clever trick, but ultimately meaningless. Information gathering was useless without the capability to act on it. What can those mining platforms actually do to us, even 43,000 of them? "Unknown, Admiral, but I'm detecting energy buildups throughout the belt. Whatever they're planning, it will happen soon." As if summoned by Yan's words, the first wave of human attacks began. But it was unlike anything the Calrothians had ever encountered. Instead of energy beams or missile launches, the humans simply threw things at them. Thousands of objects came screaming out of the asteroid belt at tremendous speed, old satellite components, chunks of processed metal, even ordinary rocks that had been fitted with simple guidance systems. They were not sophisticated weapons, just pieces of matter moving very, very fast. "Incoming projectiles. Estimated impact in 4 minutes," reported the tactical officer. Raise shields. All ships prepare for impact. The Calrothian shields flared to life. Energy barriers designed to stop the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The first wave of human projectiles struck them and simply bounced off, their kinetic energy absorbed harmlessly by the defensive systems. No damage to any ships, Admiral. Their weapons are too primitive to penetrate our defenses. But even as Hess spoke, Yen was studying his sensor readings with growing concern. Admiral, each projectile that struck our shields transmitted data before it was destroyed. What kind of data? Complete analysis of our shield harmonics, energy distribution patterns, and regeneration rates. The humans just learned everything about our defensive capabilities. The second wave came 30 minutes later. This time, the projectiles were different. Instead of bouncing off the shields, they passed right through them. The humans had analyzed the Calrothian defensive systems and modified their attacks to exploit weaknesses that the Empire's own engineers had never considered. The projectiles themselves were still simple chunks of metal, but now they struck the actual hulls of the Imperial ships. Most bounced off the advanced armor without causing damage, but a few found weak spots around sensor arrays and communication equipment. Minor damage to 17 ships, reported Hess. Nothing critical, but they managed to penetrate our shields. Admiral Zephyr was no longer amused by human tactics. Any species that could adapt their weapons so quickly deserved respect, even if their technology was primitive. How long until we clear the belt? 47 minutes at current speed, Admiral. Increase speed. I want us out of range of their platforms as quickly as possible. The fleet accelerated, their powerful engines pushing them toward the inner system. But as they moved, more and more objects in the belt came to life. What had appeared to be a sparse collection of mining equipment revealed itself to be a vast network of hidden installations. Admiral, we're detecting massive structures inside several of the larger asteroids. They appear to be manufacturing facilities. Manufacturing what? Unknown, but production is accelerating. Whatever they're building, they're making a lot of it very quickly. The third wave of human attacks confirmed Yan's fears. Instead of simple projectiles, the humans now launched sophisticated missiles that adapted their approach patterns in real time. They studied each Calrothian ship individually, analyzing its specific shield configuration and armor layout before selecting the most effective attack method. Damage reports coming in from across the fleet, announced Hess. The humans are targeting our sensor arrays and communication systems specifically. They're trying to blind and isolate our ships. It was a sound tactical approach, but the Calrothians had backup systems for their backup systems. A few damaged sensors would not stop the Imperial fleet. Still, the Admiral found himself impressed despite the situation. These humans learned incredibly fast. Sir, we're receiving another transmission. This time, the holographic display showed General Chen again. She was standing in what appeared to be a command center with dozens of displays showing the positions of both the Calrothian fleet and the human defensive installations. Admiral Zephyr, I hope you're beginning to understand our capabilities. What you've encountered so far represents approximately 3% of our asteroid belt defensive network. We have been preparing for this day for 23 years, ever since our first contact with non-human intelligence. Every piece of space debris in our system has been catalogued, analyzed, and modified as necessary. She paused, checking one of her displays before continuing. Your ships are impressive, and your technology is clearly advanced. But you have made the same mistake that many aggressive species make. You assumed that primitive technology means primitive thinking. We may not have energy shields or faster-than-light weapons, but we do have very good engineers, and we have had 2 decades to prepare. The transmission ended just as the fleet finally cleared the asteroid belt. Admiral Zephyr felt a moment of relief. Whatever the humans had hidden among the asteroids was now behind them. The path to Earth was clear. That relief lasted exactly 43 seconds. Admiral. Massive energy signatures detected throughout the inner system, announced Yen, his voice tight with concern. From where? Everywhere, sir. Jupiter's moons, Saturn's rings, objects in Earth's orbital space, even some of the planets themselves. The holographic display updated to show the entire Sol system. Red markers appeared wherever human installations had suddenly revealed themselves. There were hundreds of them scattered from Mercury to the outer gas giants. How did we miss all of this? Demanded the Admiral. They were completely passive, sir. No energy emissions, no active sensors, nothing to distinguish them from natural phenomena or civilian installations. But now they're all powering up simultaneously. As if to emphasize Yan's point, Jupiter's largest moon suddenly lit up with energy signatures. What had appeared to be a simple research station revealed itself to be something far more substantial. Massive structures emerged from underground facilities while orbital platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites began reconfiguring themselves into obvious weapon systems. Sir, similar activations detected at Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. The humans have installations throughout their entire star system. Admiral Zephyr stared at the display in growing disbelief. The intelligence reports had been completely wrong. The humans had not ignored space. They had militarized it. Every major celestial body in their system had been turned into a fortress. How is this possible? Our reconnaissance probes found no evidence of military installations. The installations appear to have been designed specifically to avoid detection, Admiral. They mimicked the energy signatures and structural patterns of civilian facilities. Our sensors classified them as research stations, mining operations, and communication hubs. The Admiral realized he was facing something unprecedented in his long career. The humans had not just prepared for war. They had prepared specifically for war against technologically superior opponents. Every aspect of their defensive strategy seemed designed to counter the advantages that advanced civilizations typically held over primitive worlds. Time to Earth orbit, he asked. 6 hours 17 minutes. Signal the fleet. All ships to maximum alert status. Deploy forward reconnaissance drones. I want detailed scans of everything between us and that planet. The weaponized system. As the Imperial fleet continued its advance toward Earth, the true scope of human preparations became clear. Mars revealed itself to have extensive underground installations connected by tunnel networks. Earth's moon was not a simple colony, but a massive fortress bristling with weapons that had been carefully camouflaged to look like civilian infrastructure. Even the space around Earth itself was far from empty. What had appeared to be routine orbital traffic revealed itself to be a complex defensive network. Cargo ships were actually mobile weapon platforms. Passenger shuttles were reconnaissance drones. Even the tourist vessel heading to Mars turned out to be a disguised military transport. Admiral, incoming transmission from the Human Command Center. General Chen appeared on the display again, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood dozens of other humans in military uniforms representing every major nation and organization on their planet. Admiral Zephyr, by now you have realized that our defensive preparations are somewhat more extensive than your intelligence suggested. We want you to know that everything you have seen so far represents our outer defensive perimeter. We are prepared to discuss terms for your withdrawal from our system. The Admiral's forearms crossed in front of his chest, a gesture of defiance among his species. We do not withdraw, General Chen. The Imperial fleet has never retreated from battle. Then you should know that we have analyzed your fleet composition, weapon systems, and tactical doctrines based on historical data from the 47 worlds you have conquered. We have prepared specific countermeasures for every type of ship in your fleet and every weapon in your arsenal. Before Zephyr could respond, she continued, we also want you to know that our defensive strategy is based on a simple principle. We do not try to match your technology because we cannot. Instead, we use our technology in ways you have never encountered before. Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles. Your armor is built to withstand plasma cannons and particle beams. Your tactics assume that your enemies will fight like other advanced civilizations. Chen's expression remained calm and professional, but there was something in her eyes that made the Admiral uncomfortable. You are not fighting other advanced civilizations, Admiral. You are fighting humans. And humans have a very different approach to problem solving. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the crushing dawn in thoughtful silence. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zephyr was beginning to wonder if his 1,000-ship fleet might not be enough. Admiral Zephyr had conquered 47 worlds, but he had never faced anything like what waited for him in the inner Sol system. As his fleet approached Mars' orbit, every sensor reading revealed new layers of human preparation that defied everything the Empire knew about primitive civilizations. Admiral, Mars is not what our intelligence reports indicated, announced Science Officer Yen, his voice tight with concern. The red planet hung before them, looking deceptively peaceful. But Calrothian sensors now penetrated the illusion that had fooled their reconnaissance probes for months. What appeared to be simple surface installations were actually the visible portions of massive underground complexes that extended deep into the planet's crust. Show me the full analysis. The holographic display updated to reveal Mars as it truly was. The planet's surface was crisscrossed with tunnel networks that connected dozens of major installations. Each facility was powered by geothermal taps that reached almost to the planet's core, providing energy levels that rivaled some of the Empire's military bases. The humans have essentially turned the entire planet into a fortress, Admiral. Every mountain contains weapon emplacements. Every canyon has been modified to serve as a launch tube for massive projectiles. They have even altered the planet's magnetic field to create interference patterns that will disrupt our targeting systems. Tactical Officer Hess studied the readings with growing amazement. Sir, the engineering involved in these modifications would require decades of constant work. How did they accomplish so much without our intelligence network detecting it? Because they made it look like something else, replied Yen. Every military installation was disguised as civilian infrastructure. Those weapon emplacements appear to be mining operations when scanned from a distance. The launch tubes look like geological survey sites. Even the magnetic field modifications were disguised as atmospheric research projects. Admiral Zephyr felt a cold realization settling in his mind. The humans had not just prepared for invasion. They had prepared specifically for invasion by the Calrothian Empire. Every countermeasure seemed designed to exploit weaknesses in Imperial technology and tactics. How much did they know about us before we arrived? Unknown, Admiral, but their preparations suggest detailed knowledge of our capabilities, our standard battle formations, and even our psychological profiles. Before the Admiral could ask for clarification, his communications officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from throughout the system. The humans appear to be coordinating their defenses. Put them through. The bridge filled with voices speaking in various human languages. The translations came through clearly, and what Zephyr heard made his confidence waver further. The humans were not panicking or arguing about what to do. Instead, they were calmly coordinating the most complex defensive operation he had ever witnessed. Lunar Command, this is Mars Central. Calrothian fleet is at bearing 27 Mark V, approaching at standard Imperial battle speed. Recommend activation of Protocol 7. Confirmed, Mars Central. Jupiter Station, are your gravity wells ready? Jupiter Station confirms. Artificial singularities are stable and positioned. Saturn Ring Defense reports railgun networks are fully charged. Excellent. Earth Command, status of Solar Collection Array. Solar Array is focused and ready. We can deliver concentrated stellar plasma on target within 30 seconds of authorization. Admiral Zephyr's forearms trembled slightly as he listened to the human coordination chatter. Artificial singularities, gravity wells, solar plasma collection, these were not the weapons of a primitive civilization. These were the tools of species that had mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. Analysis of their capabilities, he demanded of his staff. Yen worked frantically at his sensors, trying to get detailed readings on the human installations. Admiral, I'm detecting energy signatures that don't match any known technology in Imperial databases. The humans appear to have developed completely novel approaches to energy manipulation and spacetime distortion. That's impossible. Our intelligence indicated they had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Sir, I think our intelligence was deliberately misled. The humans wanted us to see primitive spacecraft and basic weapons. They concealed their true capabilities until we were committed to this attack. As if responding to their conversation, another transmission came through from Earth. This time it was not General Chen, but a different human entirely, an elderly man with white hair and calm eyes wearing the simple clothes of a civilian scientist. Admiral Zephyr, this is Dr. James Harrison, Director of the Sol System Defense Initiative. I wanted to personally explain what you're facing since your intelligence appears to be incomplete. The old human gestured, and the transmission expanded to show what appeared to be a massive underground facility filled with equipment that the Admiral could not identify. 23 years ago, we encountered a probe from the Zephyrian Empire. It was damaged and crashed on our moon. From that probe, we learned two crucial facts. First, we were not alone in the universe. Second, some of our neighbors were not friendly. Dr. Harrison began walking through the facility, the camera following him past machines that hummed with barely contained energy. We realized that when contact finally came, it would likely be from a species with technology far superior to ours. Traditional military doctrine would be useless. We needed a completely new approach to defense. The scientists stopped in front of a massive circular device that seemed to bend light around its edges. So we asked ourselves a simple question: if we cannot match their technology, how can we win? The answer was to change the nature of the conflict entirely. The transmission showed brief glimpses of other human installations throughout the system, massive machines on Jupiter's moons, strange geometric structures in Saturn's rings, devices that seemed to manipulate space itself around Earth's orbital platforms. We studied every aspect of galactic civilization that we could deduce from the probe's data. We analyzed typical invasion patterns, standard weapon systems, and conventional defensive strategies. Then we designed countermeasures for all of them. Dr. Harrison's expression remained calm and professional, but there was pride in his voice. The result is what you see around you. We have not tried to build better energy shields or faster ships. Instead, we have weaponized the solar system itself. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid has been modified to serve our defensive strategy. The transmission ended, leaving the Calrothian bridge in stunned silence. Admiral Zephyr had faced desperate last stands before, but never anything like this. The humans had spent decades preparing specifically for this moment. Admiral, we're approaching the orbital path of Earth's moon, announced Navigation Officer Kelrich. On screen, Earth's moon appeared on the display, looking much larger than it should have from their current distance. As Calrothian sensors focused on it, the reason became clear. The moon was surrounded by a vast network of orbital installations that had been carefully camouflaged to blend with the natural debris field. Sir, the lunar installations are activating, reported Yen. Energy readings are off our scales. What the Empire had taken for a simple colony revealed itself to be the most heavily fortified position in the system. The moon's surface was covered with weapon emplacements that had been hidden inside fake craters. Its interior had been hollowed out and converted into a massive manufacturing facility that was now producing weapons at an incredible rate. They're launching something, announced Hess. Thousands of objects streamed away from the lunar installations. But these were not the crude projectiles the humans had used in the asteroid belt. These were sophisticated missiles that moved in patterns that defied known physics. They curved through space as if following invisible tracks, accelerating and decelerating in ways that suggested advanced gravitational manipulation. Evasive action, ordered the Admiral. The Imperial fleet began complex evasive maneuvers, their ships moving in the precise formations that had served them well in 47 previous conquests. But the human missiles adapted to every defensive move, changing course with impossible precision to stay locked on their targets. Sir, the missiles are not following ballistic trajectories. They appear to be riding controlled gravitational waves. That's impossible. Gravitational manipulation requires massive amounts of energy and computational power. Nevertheless, Admiral, that appears to be exactly what they're doing. The first wave of missiles struck the fleet's outer ships, but instead of exploding on contact, they did something far worse. They attached themselves to the hulls and began doing something to the metal itself. Within minutes, several Calrothian ships found their armor literally dissolving around them. Damage report, demanded Zephyr. The missiles appear to contain some kind of molecular disassembly device, Admiral. They're breaking down our hull materials at the atomic level. 12 ships were lost in the first attack, simply falling apart as their structural integrity failed. The surviving vessels of the fleet watched in horror as some of the Empire's most advanced warships crumbled like sand. All ships, emergency protocols. Purge any foreign objects from your hulls immediately. But even as the Admiral gave the order, he realized the humans had predicted this response. The second wave of lunar missiles was designed to exploit the very countermeasures his fleet would use. Ships that attempted to purge the molecular disassemblers found themselves vulnerable to follow-up attacks that targeted their now weakened defensive systems. Admiral, we're receiving telemetry from throughout the system, announced his communications officer. All human installations are coordinating their attacks with perfect timing. The holographic display showed the entire Sol system with red indicators marking every human weapons platform. As Zephyr watched, he realized the humans were treating the entire star system as a single integrated weapon. Every installation from Mercury to Neptune was part of a coordinated defensive network that responded to threats with inhuman precision. How are they coordinating across such distances? Even faster-than-light communication has delays. Science Officer Yen looked up from his instruments with an expression of awe. Admiral, I believe they're using quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication. Every installation in the system is in real-time contact with every other installation. The implications hit the Admiral like a physical blow. Quantum entanglement communication was theoretical technology that even the Empire had not mastered. If the humans had solved those problems, they could coordinate defensive actions across interplanetary distances without any delay whatsoever. Time to Earth orbit, he asked quietly. 4 hours 12 minutes, Admiral. As the fleet continued its approach, the human defenses continued to reveal new layers of sophistication. Saturn's rings were not just hiding weapon platforms, they had been modified to serve as a massive particle accelerator that could launch projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Jupiter's magnetic field had been enhanced and focused to create directed electromagnetic pulses that disrupted Calrothian electronics. Even the Sun itself seemed to be under human control as focused beams of stellar plasma lanced out to strike at Imperial ships. Admiral, we've lost 63 vessels, reported Hess, and we haven't even reached Earth's defensive perimeter yet. Zephyr stared at the tactical display, watching red indicators appear and disappear as his ships were destroyed by weapons that should not have existed. In his long career, he had never lost more than a handful of vessels conquering an entire world. Now he was losing dozens of ships just trying to reach Earth orbit. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command. General Chen appeared on the display again, but now she was surrounded by military officers from dozens of different human organizations. Behind them, wall-mounted displays showed the current status of the battle from every angle. Admiral, we want you to understand what you're facing. What you have encountered so far represents our long-range defensive systems. As you get closer to Earth, you will face our medium-range defenses, then our close-range systems, and finally our planetary defense grid. She paused, consulting a tablet that one of her officers handed her. Each defensive layer uses completely different principles and technologies. We have designed them specifically to counter the adaptation strategies that successful military forces typically employ. Every time you develop a countermeasure to one system, you will face something entirely different. The general's expression remained professional, but there was steel in her voice. "We are not asking you to surrender, Admiral. We are informing you that continuing this attack will result in the complete destruction of your fleet. We have run simulations based on your current approach pattern and estimated capabilities. None of them result in a successful invasion." Before Zephyr could respond, she continued, "However, we are prepared to allow your fleet to withdraw from our system unharmed. We have no desire to continue this conflict if it can be avoided." The transmission ended, leaving the Admiral with a choice he had never faced before. In 47 conquests, no enemy had ever offered him terms. They had either surrendered immediately or been crushed by Imperial might. But 47 victories meant nothing if the 48th battle destroyed his entire fleet. And for the first time in his career, Admiral Zephyr was beginning to believe that might actually happen. "Admiral, Earth is now visible on long-range sensors," announced Kelrich. The blue-green world hung in space ahead of them, looking deceptively peaceful. But Calrothian instruments could already detect the massive energy signatures of weapon systems that dwarfed anything they had yet encountered. The humans had saved their most powerful defenses for last. "Maintain course," the Admiral ordered, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Behind him, his bridge crew exchanged worried glances. They had followed their Admiral through 47 victories, but this battle felt different. The humans were not acting like any enemy they had ever faced. As the Imperial fleet approached Earth, every officer aboard every ship began to understand that they were not conquering a primitive world. They were challenging a civilization that had spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. And the humans were ready for them. The final defense. Admiral Zephyr stood on the bridge of the crushing dawn and watched Earth grow larger on his displays. Behind him lay the wreckage of 63 Imperial warships, their debris forming a trail of destruction that marked the fleet's painful advance through the Sol system. Ahead lay a blue-green world that had already proven more dangerous than any enemy in his long career. But the Admiral was Calrothian, and Calrothians did not retreat. Even if these humans had surprised him with their preparations, even if they had weapons that defied Imperial understanding, he still commanded over 900 ships. No single world could stand against such overwhelming force. "All ships report ready for final assault, Admiral," announced Tactical Officer Hess. "Time to optimal firing position, 17 minutes, sir." Zephyr nodded grimly. 17 minutes and this strange battle would be over. The humans had fought cleverly, but cleverness had limits. Once his fleet reached Earth orbit, they would demonstrate why the Empire had never failed to conquer a world it set its sights on. "Sir, detecting massive energy buildups throughout Earth's orbital space," reported Science Officer Yen. "Also getting readings from the planet's surface that don't match anything in our databases." "Show me." The holographic display updated to show Earth and its immediate surroundings. What Admiral Zephyr saw made him question everything he thought he knew about planetary defense. The space around Earth was not empty, as their long-range scans had suggested. Instead, it was filled with structures that had somehow remained completely invisible until now. Massive orbital platforms floated in perfect geometric patterns around the planet. Each one was easily the size of a Calrothian battleship, but their design was unlike anything the Empire had encountered. They seemed to be built around focusing arrays that gathered and concentrated energy from sources the Admiral could not identify. "Analysis of the orbital platforms," he demanded. "Unknown technology, Admiral. They appear to be collecting energy from multiple sources simultaneously: solar radiation, cosmic background radiation, even what appears to be zero-point energy extraction from vacuum space itself." Zero-point energy, the theoretical power source that could provide unlimited energy by tapping into the quantum fluctuations of empty space. The Empire's best scientists considered it impossible to harness. Yet, the humans seemed to be doing exactly that. Energy levels. Each platform is generating approximately 10 times the power output of our largest battleship reactors, Admiral. Before Zephyr could process that information fully, new readings appeared on his displays. The Earth itself was lighting up with energy signatures that defied belief. Not just from obvious installations, but from what appeared to be the planet's natural features. Sir, the mountain ranges are showing massive power spikes. So are the ocean floors, the ice caps, and even the atmospheric layers. That's impossible. You cannot weaponize an entire planet. But as Calrothian sensors focused on Earth's surface, the impossible became undeniable. Every major geographical feature had been modified in some way. Mountain peaks housed energy collectors that focused power from across the electromagnetic spectrum. Ocean floors contained massive installations that tapped into the planet's core energy. Even the atmosphere itself had been seeded with devices that could manipulate electromagnetic fields on a planetary scale. Admiral, incoming transmission from Earth Command. General Chen appeared on the display, but this time she was not in a command center. She was standing on what appeared to be an observation deck with the curve of Earth visible behind her through massive windows. Admiral Zephyr, you are now entering Earth's primary defensive perimeter. I wanted to personally explain what you are about to face so you understand that what happens next is not malice but simply the natural consequence of your decision to continue this attack. Behind her, other humans worked at control stations that managed displays showing energy flows across the entire planet. The scale of the coordination was breathtaking. 23 years ago, when we realized that hostile first contact was inevitable, we made a decision that defined everything that followed. We decided that if we were going to defend our home, we would do it properly. Not just our cities or our military installations, but our entire world. The general gestured toward the displays behind her, which showed energy patterns flowing across continents like glowing rivers. We converted our entire planet into a single integrated defensive system. Every mountain, every ocean, every layer of atmosphere contributes to our ability to protect what we have built here. Earth itself has become our weapon. The transmission paused as one of the human technicians handed Chen a data tablet. She glanced at it before continuing. Your fleet is impressive, Admiral. 937 ships, each one a masterpiece of engineering. Under normal circumstances, such a force would be unstoppable. Chen's expression remained calm, but there was sadness in her eyes now. You are not attacking a defenseless world, Admiral. You are attacking a planet that has spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. Every human being on Earth has contributed to what you are about to witness. Our children helped design the quantum processors that coordinate our defenses. Our elderly provided the wisdom that guided our strategic planning. Our artists imagined possibilities that our engineers made real. The transmission began showing images from across Earth's surface, cities where every building contributed power to the defensive grid, forests where the trees themselves had been modified to serve as sensor networks, deserts covered with collector arrays that focus stellar energy from multiple star systems. This is what you face, Admiral. Not just our military, not just our weapons, but the combined will and ingenuity of an entire species that has decided it will not be conquered. General Chen looked directly at the camera, and when she spoke again, her voice carried absolute conviction. We gave you every opportunity to withdraw. We demonstrated our capabilities gradually, hoping you would recognize the futility of continued aggression. But you have chosen to proceed. So be it. The transmission ended just as the Calrothian fleet reached what their sensors indicated was optimal firing range. Admiral Zephyr had conquered 47 worlds, and he knew the moment when victory or defeat hung in the balance. This was that moment. All ships open fire. Target the orbital platforms first, then begin planetary bombardment. The Imperial fleet unleashed the concentrated firepower of nearly 1,000 warships. Energy beams that could crack continents lanced through space toward the human defensive positions. Missiles carrying warheads that could devastate entire cities streaked toward their targets. The combined assault represented more destructive power than most species could imagine. For exactly 3 seconds, it seemed as if the Imperial attack might succeed. Calrothian weapons struck the human orbital platforms, overwhelming their defensive screens and beginning to damage their exotic energy collectors. Then the humans responded. The first indication that something unprecedented was happening came from the sun itself. Solar flares erupted from the star's surface, but these were not natural phenomena. They followed precise trajectories that brought focused streams of stellar plasma directly toward the Calrothian fleet. The humans had somehow learned to control the star that gave life to their world. "Evasive action," ordered Admiral Zephyr. But his ships were already trapped. The space around Earth warped and twisted as artificial gravity wells activated throughout the orbital defensive network. Instead of the predictable trajectories that allowed for evasive maneuvers, Calrothian ships found themselves pulled inexorably toward weapons they could not see or understand. "Admiral, gravitational fields are fluctuating throughout the combat zone. Our navigation systems cannot compensate." But gravity manipulation was just the beginning. As the Imperial ship struggled against forces that pulled them in multiple directions simultaneously, the human orbital platforms revealed their true purpose. Each one was not just a weapon but a focusing array that could bend spacetime itself. The attack came from everywhere at once. Beams of pure energy that ignored conventional shields and armor struck directly at the molecular bonds that held Calrothian ships together. Gravitational waves that crushed metal like paper swept through the fleet in perfect formation. Most terrifying of all, some ships simply vanished, apparently transported to locations that no longer existed in normal space. "Damage report," the Admiral demanded. But Tactical Officer Hess could only stare at his displays in confusion. "Sir, I'm reading total destruction of the first wave. 237 ships lost in the first attack." "But, Admiral, I don't understand how they were destroyed. Our sensors show energy patterns that violate known physics." Before Zephyr could respond, the second wave of human attacks began. This time, the assault came not from orbit, but from Earth itself. The planet's magnetic field, enhanced and focused by installations across its surface, created electromagnetic pulses that fried Calrothian electronics across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Ships that had survived the first attack found their systems failing as waves of precisely tuned electromagnetic energy overwhelmed their shielding. Communication arrays went dead. Navigation computers crashed. Even basic life support systems began to malfunction as the human planetary defense grid demonstrated capabilities that the Empire had never encountered. "All ships, emergency retreat," ordered the Admiral, but his communications were lost in the electromagnetic chaos surrounding his fleet. The third phase of the human defense was the most devastating of all. Across Earth's surface, installations that had been hidden beneath oceans and inside mountains revealed their true purpose. They were not just weapons or power collectors, but components of a planetary-scale matter transmutation system. The humans had learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level on a scale that encompassed their entire world. Instead of building conventional weapons, they had turned the Earth itself into a device that could alter the fundamental properties of anything within its reach. Calrothian ships that had survived energy beams and electromagnetic pulses now faced an enemy that could simply change what they were made of. Advanced armor became ordinary rock. Sophisticated electronics became inert metals. Even the Calrothian crew members found their environmental systems failing as the very air in their ships was transformed into substances their bodies could not process. "Admiral, we've lost over 600 ships," reported Hess, his voice barely audible over the interference that filled their communication systems. "Recommend immediate withdrawal from the system." But Admiral Zephyr could see that withdrawal was no longer possible. The human defenses had surrounded his fleet with fields and forces that made conventional space travel impossible. His ships were trapped in Earth's orbital space, subject to weapons that operated according to principles that Imperial science had never imagined. The final phase of the human defense was the most elegant of all. Instead of destroying the remaining Calrothian ships, the humans simply removed them from normal spacetime. One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone, transported to a dimension where the laws of physics no longer applied in familiar ways. Admiral Zephyr watched his fleet disappear ship by ship. Each vessel simply winking out of existence as if it had never been there at all. In less than 90 seconds, the Imperial force that had conquered 47 worlds was reduced to scattered atoms drifting among the stars. The crushing dawn was the last ship to go. As artificial gravity fields closed around his flagship, Admiral Zephyr had one final moment to understand what had happened to him. The humans had not defeated his fleet through superior firepower or better tactics. They had simply changed the fundamental rules by which space combat operated. As his ship was torn apart at the quantum level, the Admiral's last thought was a warning that would never be delivered to the Empire: these humans were not just another primitive species to be conquered. They were something entirely new in the galaxy, a civilization that had learned to wage war with the very forces that held the universe together. The Calrothian Empire had sent 1,000 ships to conquer Earth. In the end, those ships had lasted exactly 93 seconds in Earth's defensive perimeter. And in those 93 seconds, humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage in a way that would never be forgotten. The space around Earth was empty now, except for drifting particles that had once been the Empire's greatest fleet. But the human defensive systems remained active, ready for whatever might come next. General Chen stood on her observation deck and watched the last traces of the Calrothian fleet fade into cosmic background radiation. Around her, her staff worked quietly to restore Earth's natural appearance, hiding once again the weapons that had just reshaped the balance of power in this part of the galaxy. The humans had spent 23 years preparing for this day. Now they would spend the next 23 years preparing for whatever consequences their victory might bring. Earth was safe. But the galaxy was about to learn that there was a new species among the stars, one that had a very different understanding of what it meant to defend their home. The silence in Earth's orbital space was complete. Where moments before 1,000 Calrothian warships had filled the void with energy weapons and the fury of conquest, now there was only empty space and the distant glow of scattered particles that had once been the Empire's most powerful fleet. General Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Earth Defense Command and watched the last energy signatures fade from their displays. Around her, dozens of technicians and officers worked with quiet efficiency to shut down the planetary defense systems that had just rewritten the rules of interstellar warfare. Defensive grid status, she asked her chief operations officer. All systems nominal, General. Primary and secondary networks are powering down to standby mode. Estimated time to full concealment, 4 hours 17 minutes. Chen nodded. Within hours, Earth would once again appear to be nothing more than a simple blue-green world orbiting an unremarkable star. The weapons that had just obliterated an Imperial fleet would be hidden beneath oceans, inside mountains, and within the planet's magnetic field itself. To casual observation, the Sol system would look exactly as it had before the Calrothians arrived. But everything had changed. Communications, prepare the message packages. Full spectrum broadcast to all known galactic communication frequencies. Yes, General. Using the Calrothian communication protocols we captured. All of them. I want every advanced civilization in this part of the galaxy to receive our transmission simultaneously. Dr. James Harrison, the elderly scientist who had overseen Earth's defensive preparations for more than 2 decades, approached the general with a data tablet in his hands. His white hair was disheveled from the stress of coordinating the battle, but his eyes held the satisfaction of a man whose life's work had just succeeded beyond his wildest hopes. The quantum analysis is complete, Sarah. We have detailed recordings of every weapon system, every energy signature, and every tactical doctrine the Calrothians used. More importantly, we have complete scans of their ships' construction methods and technological capabilities. Chen accepted the tablet and scrolled through data that represented the collected knowledge of one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. How does their technology compare to our projections? Remarkably close to what we expected, actually. Advanced energy manipulation, sophisticated material science, efficient faster-than-light drives, but nothing that fundamentally challenges our understanding of physics. They were powerful, but not innovative. The general considered that assessment. The Calrothians had conquered 47 worlds using conventional approaches to space warfare, energy shields, plasma weapons, kinetic bombardment, and superior numbers. Against most species, such tactics would be overwhelming. But the humans had spent 23 years preparing for exactly that kind of conventional assault. Any signs of other Imperial forces in nearby systems? Dr. Harrison consulted another display. Our deep space sensors are detecting increased communication traffic throughout this region of the galaxy. Word of the battle is spreading faster than we anticipated. Good. That was always part of the plan. Chen moved to the communication station where her staff had prepared the message that would announce humanity's presence to the galaxy. It was not a message of conquest or threat, but something far more profound. It was a declaration that the balance of power among the stars had fundamentally shifted. Begin transmission. The message that went out from Earth was elegantly simple. It contained 3 components, each designed to convey specific information to any advanced civilization that received it. The first component was a basic introduction. Humanity identified itself as the dominant species of the Sol system, provided basic information about their technological capabilities, and stated their intention to remain neutral in existing galactic conflicts while defending their territory against any aggressive actions. The second component was a complete recording of the battle that had just concluded. Every moment of the Calrothian fleet destruction was documented in perfect detail. From the first attacks in the asteroid belt to the final obliteration of Admiral Zephyr's flagship, any species that received the transmission would understand exactly what had happened to the Empire's invincible fleet. But it was the third component that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Attached to humanity's message were detailed technical specifications for several of Earth's simpler defensive technologies, anti-gravity generators that could be built using common materials, energy-focusing systems that could turn a planet star into a weapon, quantum communication networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across interstellar distances. The humans were not just demonstrating their power. They were sharing it. Message transmission complete, General. Estimated delivery to all major galactic powers within 72 hours. Chen nodded and moved to another station where her intelligence officers were monitoring communication intercepts from across the region. Already the reactions were beginning. Report from the Zephyrian Federation, General. They're recalling all military vessels to defensive positions around their home worlds. The Andromedian Collective, similar response. They've declared a state of emergency and are requesting diplomatic contact with Earth immediately. And the Calrothian Empire? Her intelligence chief consulted his displays. Interesting development there, General. We're intercepting emergency communications throughout their territory. It appears that news of the fleet's destruction has triggered internal conflicts. Several subjugated species are declaring independence, believing that imperial power has been broken. Chen had expected that response. The Calrothian Empire, like most galactic powers, maintained control through the threat of overwhelming military force. When that threat was removed, the political structures built around it would inevitably collapse. Any indication that they're preparing another attack on our system? Negative, General. In fact, we're detecting Imperial ships withdrawing from this entire region of space. They appear to be consolidating their forces around their core worlds. The general allowed herself a small smile. The message was clear. The Calrothian Empire, ancient and proud, had decided that humanity was too dangerous to confront directly. Dr. Harrison approached with another report. Sarah, we're receiving diplomatic overtures from 16 different species. All of them want to establish formal contact with Earth. Several are offering mutual defense agreements. Any of them species that the Calrothians had conquered? 7 of them, yes. They're particularly interested in the defensive technologies we included in our broadcast. That was exactly what Chen had hoped for. By sharing their simpler weapons technologies, humanity was not just protecting itself. They were providing other species with the tools they needed to defend themselves against aggressive neighbors. Draft response protocols for diplomatic contact. Standard procedures, but emphasize that we're interested in peaceful relations with any species that respects our sovereignty. Already in progress, General. As Earth's leadership worked to establish humanity's new position in galactic affairs, the consequences of their victory rippled outward across the stars. In the Calrothian Empire, Admiral Zephyr's second-in-command, Admiral Kelmore, stood in the Imperial War Room and studied the recordings that had somehow survived the battle. The recordings were fragmentary and brief, transmitted by automated systems in the final moments before each ship was destroyed. But they told a story that chilled every Calrothian military officer who saw them. Analysis complete, Admiral, reported the Empire's chief scientist. The humans demonstrated capabilities that exceed our understanding in multiple areas: gravitational manipulation on a stellar scale, quantum-level matter transmutation, coordinated defensive systems that span an entire star system. Admiral Kelmore had served in the Imperial military for 60 years. He had conquered 12 worlds personally and had never encountered an enemy that Imperial firepower could not overwhelm. But the recordings from the Sol system showed weapons that operated according to principles the Empire had never imagined. Recommendations: complete avoidance of the Sol system, Admiral. Classify it as a forbidden zone. Any approach by Imperial vessels should be considered a suicide mission. The Admiral accepted that recommendation without argument. The loss of 1,000 ships and 50,000 crew members was a disaster that would reshape Imperial policy for generations. The Empire could not afford another such defeat. What about the other species in this region? Are they likely to adopt human technologies? Highly probable, Admiral. The humans included detailed specifications for several weapon systems in their galactic broadcast. Any species with basic industrial capability could implement those technologies within months. Admiral Kelmore felt the weight of a changing galaxy settling on his shoulders. For centuries, the Calrothian Empire had expanded through superior technology and overwhelming force. Now, a single species had demonstrated that such advantages were not permanent. Prepare a full strategic assessment for the Imperial Council. Include recommendations for defensive consolidation and diplomatic outreach to species we have not yet conquered. The words tasted bitter in the Admiral's mouth. The Calrothian Empire, for the first time in its history, would have to consider negotiation as an alternative to conquest. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, humanity began the complex process of adjusting to their new role in galactic affairs. The defensive preparations that had consumed decades of effort and resources had succeeded beyond their creators' wildest hopes. But success brought its own challenges. "General, we need to discuss long-term strategy," Dr. Harrison said as he joined Chen on the observation deck. "Our victory over the Calrothians will have consequences we cannot fully predict." Chen nodded, gazing out at the peaceful Earth that hung in space before them. "I know. We've announced our presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Some species will want to be our allies. Others will see us as a threat to be eliminated. And some will want to study our technologies, possibly through less than peaceful means. Which is why Phase 2 begins immediately." Dr. Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Phase 2? Did you really think we would stop with defending Earth? James, we've proven that human ingenuity can overcome technological disadvantages. Now we need to ensure that advantage is permanent." Chen activated a wall display that showed the entire Sol system with indicators marking dozens of construction projects that had been hidden even from most of Earth's population. While we were building our defensive network, we were also building an expansion infrastructure, mining operations in the outer system, manufacturing facilities on the gas giant moons, research stations in the cometary cloud, everything we need to take human civilization to the stars. Dr. Harrison studied the display with growing amazement. "You're talking about interstellar expansion. I'm talking about making sure humanity never faces an existential threat again. The best defense is to ensure that Earth is not our only world. Within 50 years, human colonies will be established in a dozen star systems. Within a century, we'll be one of the major powers in this part of the galaxy. And if other species try to stop us, Chen's expression hardened. Then they'll learn what the Calrothians learned. Humans don't just defend themselves, James. We engineer solutions to problems. And right now, our biggest problem is ensuring that what happened today never has to happen again. As Earth's leaders planned for humanity's expansion into the galaxy, their message continued to spread among the stars. On hundreds of worlds, alien civilizations received the transmission that announced the arrival of a new galactic power. The recordings of the Calrothian fleet destruction were studied by military strategists, scientists, and political leaders across known space. The consensus was unanimous: a new age had begun. The galaxy now contained a species that had demonstrated the ability to wage war with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Some civilizations saw opportunity and potential alliance with such a powerful neighbor. Others saw only threat in humanity's obvious capabilities. But all of them understood one simple fact: the Sol system was now marked on every galactic map with a warning that would be respected for generations to come. Here be humans. And humans, as the galaxy was learning, had a very different approach to solving problems than any species that had come before them. They did not simply build better weapons or stronger defenses. They engineered reality itself to serve their purposes. The Calrothian Empire had sent 1,000 ships to conquer a primitive world. Those ships had lasted 93 seconds against defenses that treated physics as a set of suggestions rather than immutable laws. The message was clear to anyone capable of understanding it: humanity had arrived among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same again. In the years that followed, historians would mark the destruction of the Calrothian fleet as the moment when the old order of galactic civilization came to an end. The age of conquest through superior firepower was over. The age of human ingenuity had begun. And across the stars, other species began to learn what it truly meant to coexist with a civilization that regarded warfare as simply another engineering problem to be solved.